Hello to all my grade 8 students. So how are you today? How did you spend your weekend? So anyways, I hope everybody enjoy your weekend. And of course, you also did not forget your module to answer everything what is being asked. So today, I'm going to discuss the particle nature of matter. So what is matter made of? How does the particle model of matter explain some observed properties and changes in matter? So, class, I know in your grade 7, you recognize that there is a wide variety of material, and this material combined in many ways and through different processes. So with this diversity of materials, you learn that chemists came up with several ways of classifying them: heterogeneous and homogeneous mixtures, elements and compounds, metal and non-metals, and acids and bases. So by engaging in simple scientific investigations, you're able to recognize some properties of solutions, which are classified as homogeneous mixtures. So you also study the properties of common elements, compounds, metals, and non-metals, as well as solutions of acids and bases. So, later, we will discuss about the particle nature of matter. Okay. So for our learning objectives for this lesson, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe common properties of matter, distinguish properties of matter from those of non-matter, and explain how do they differ from each other. Okay, now we have to define what is matter. Okay, class. So matter is anything that occupies space and has mass is called matter. Now, you will ask, how about mass? What is a mass? Okay, so mass of an object is a measure of the amount of matter the object has. So again, the mass of an object is a measure of the amount of matter the object has. So it does not mean that your weight is equivalent to the mass. So definitely you are wrong. So the mass of an object is a measure of the amount of matter the object has. Okay. So that would refer to the amount of mass. Then the volume, how you're going to find the volume. So the volume is the measure of the space occupied by an object. So it is the space that being occupied for that particular object, no, is the volume. Okay, is it clear? Okay, so again, matter is made up of tiny particles which you cannot observe with your unaided eyes. So this fundamental idea will enable you to learn that the properties of matter are a result of the arrangement of particles it is made of. So as you can see in this model, you have the gas, liquid, and the solid. So if you're going to check or if you're going to look at it, then you can simply see that the arrangement of gas is different from the arrangement of a liquid. And the arrangement of the liquid is also different from the arrangement of solid and vice, and so with the gas. Okay? So meaning to say, the properties of matter are the result of the arrangement of particles. So through the arrangement of particles, then by that you can distinguish if it is gas, liquid, or solid. Now, you have here the properties of matter. So, if I am going to ask you what are the properties of matter, then you can simply answer me. So, with their corresponding description. For the solid, you have, so it is tightly packed in a regular pattern. Vibrate but do not move from place to place. Okay. So, pag solid, so tingnan nyo, pag solid, it does not move to any place or from here to another. So, it stays there, it just vibrates, but it does not move. Okay. For the liquid, so try to look at the particles and the arrangement of the liquid. It is close together with no regular arrangement. So try to look at the arrangement. It is somewhere, anywhere. It vibrates, move about, and slide past each other. Okay. Now for the gas, well separated with no regular arrangement. So it is almost the same with the liquid, that the arrangement is not regular. And still vibrate and move freely at high speed. So the gas, the arrangement is no regular. They also move freely at a high speed. Now you have the plasma. Again, the plasma has no definite volume or space and is composed of electrical charged particles. So simply, by looking at this illustration, you can simply differentiate how do these properties of matter differ with one to another. Okay. So matter can have different properties. So measure the mass of each sample of matter using a balance or a weighing scale. The mass of an object is a measure of the amount of matter the object has. You observe that the mass of each sample of matter is different from the mass of the other samples. She also found out that each sample matter occupies space. So the measure of the space occupied by an object is what we call the volume. So again, all matter have mass and volume. So that was illustrated in the previous slides. Okay. So there are other properties of matter such as hardness, texture, color, flexibility, malleability, and electrical conductivity, which vary from one sample to another. Okay. So what is matter made of? So based on protons, neutrons, and electrons, a definition of matter more fine scale than the atoms and molecules definition is Matter is made up of what atoms and molecules are made of, meaning anything made of positively charged protons, neutral neutrons, and negatively charged electrons. Okay. So in your grade 7, you studied other properties of matter. So you investigated how fast sugar and salt dissolve in water. You even compare the boiling point of a substance with that of the mixture, the seawater and the distilled water. And then you also compare that. Now, what is matter really made of? All matter is made up of tiny, tiny particles called atoms. Atoms can be broken down into even smaller particles. So most substances are made of molecules, groups of atoms tightly bound together. Okay. Almost 2,500 years ago, Nuciprus and his disciple Democritus believed that the nature consisted of two things. You have the atoms and the void that surrounds them. They believed that atoms are physically but not geometrically indivisible. So you have atomos, a Greek word which means indivisible particles. Okay? Now, you have Democritus' theory about atom, that all matter composed of atoms in void. Atoms were indivisible and indestructible. Properties of atom differ in shape, arrangement, and size. Shape of atom determine the substance properties. Okay? Now, you also have the John Dalton theory. So he presented concrete evidence that all matter is made of very small particles called atoms. So if you try to remember that these scientists, they almost have the same perception about the atoms, made up of very small or tiny particles, which is called atoms. An atom is the smallest particle of an element that has all the properties of the element. So Dalton's theory states all matter is made up of individual particles called atoms, which cannot be divided. Okay. So, matter is made up of tiny and discrete particles. The particles may be atoms, molecules, or ions. So, an atom is the smallest particle of an element. Try to remember this. That atom is the smallest particle of an element that has all properties of the element. And a molecule is a neutral particle that consists of two or more atoms which are chemically bonded together. Okay? And an ion is a positively charged or negatively charged particle. Now, the size of an atom is measured in angstrom. So 1 angstrom is a unit of length equal to 1/10 million of a millimeter. So we have the scanning tunneling microscope. This is the one that we are going to use. So it can magnify an image 10 million times, and it creates a profile of the surface of an atom, and then a computer-generated model or contour map is produced. Now, for example, a good analogy to consider related to matter being composed of tiny particles is the pointillist style of painting. So the image is a pointillist painting appear continuous, but if one looks closely, the image are actually made of small dots. Pointillism is a method of painting using dots to come up with various effects. The dots are placed singly in rows or randomly. These dots can also be in the groups, or they can be overlapping. They can be either uniform or varied in size in the same painting. Matter is similarly assembled with atoms of different elements combining in various ways to give a tremendous variety of substances. Now, try to look at this image as it was being explained early in the previous slides. So, if you can notice, the image comprises of dots. So if you're going to look at closer, now this dots can create now an image. So as you can see in figure 1, this is a continuous image of a pointillist painting. So closer look, blown up image of a portion of figure 1A. So dots are more conspicuous. So it is very clear. Far afar, you cannot barely see the dots. But when it is closer, it is blown up image already, so you can see the portion that it has a dots. Okay. So we have here the characteristics of particles of matter. So everything around us is made up of tiny pieces or particles. So the particles that make up matter are atoms, ions, or molecules. So please don't forget. Know those particles that make up matter are atoms, molecules, and ions rather. So the particles of matter are very, very small. The particles of matter have spaces between them. So the particles of matter are constantly moving. The particles of matter attract each other. So matter can have different properties. So again, everything around us is made up of tiny pieces or particles. The particles that make up matter are atoms, ions, or molecules. So again, you also have to consider the properties of matter, the hardness, color, malleability, flexibility, conductivity, and the viscosity. So these are the models of the three states of matter. You have the liquid, the solid, and the gas. So try to take note of their arrangement. So based on their arrangement, you can distinguish which state of matter it is. Is it solid, liquid, or gas? Okay. So I hope you cannot forget the three states of matter. You have solid, liquid, and gas. So again, solid have a fixed shape and a fixed volume. Solid cannot be compressed much. Solid have high densities. Solid do not fill their container completely. Solids do not flow. So remember, those are the properties of solids, and which you can differ from the other state of matter. For the liquid have fixed volume, but they have no fixed shape. Yes. It depends on the container. That is why liquids can have shape. So, container matters when it comes to shape when we talk about liquid state of matter. So, like solid, liquids cannot be compressed much. Yes, because liquid will just flow freely. Unlike solid, then you can compress. Liquids have moderate to high densities. Liquids do not fill their container completely. Liquids generally flow. Yes. Now, we have the properties of gases. Gases have neither a fixed shape nor a fixed volume. Gases can be compressed easily. Gases have a very low densities. Gases fill their container completely. Gases flow easily. Okay. Now, we have here the table for the property. Then, shape, volume, density. So this is the table for your comparison of the three different states of matter. So try to take note of this and be familiarized so you can simply differentiate between. Okay. So now, what changes in matter? How this matter can change? So is there any possibility for these three states of matter? Yes, there is. Okay. Now we will discuss. So solid, liquid, and gas. So this is the diagram, no? How matter changes. Solid, sublimation. Then, what happened? It turns into gas. Gas, deposition, then solid. Gas, condensation. Then, it can turn into liquid. Then, liquid evaporation. Then what happened to the liquid when it is evaporated? It will rise up and goes to the atmosphere, and and it forms clouds. So, clouds of gas. Then, liquid, what happened? When the temperature changes, if it is cold, or once it is put in the freezer or in the fridge, then what happened to the liquid? It will turn into solid. Then, what happened to the solid once there is a change of temperature? If there is heat, or once the solid is heated, or it is being out from the fridge, then of course this solid ice will definitely melt. So this is how matter changes. That is because of the temperature, and of course the pressure also is one factor. Okay. Here, all matter is made up of four basic substances. So try to look at these images. So you have Aristotle and Democritus. Again, if you look at the table, so how these three phases of matter changes. Phases change: original phase, final phase, heat required or generated. So melting, freezing, condensation, evaporation, sublimation, deposition. This is how those matter change. Melting, original, solid, then final, it turns into liquid. So heat required, yes, heat is required. Freezing, Liquid to solid, heat generated. Condensation, gas, then gas turns into liquid. Evaporation, liquid to gas, then heated. Sublimation, yes, solid to gas. Heat is required. Then deposition, gas to solid, then heat is being generated. Okay. So how the particles are arranged in the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. So matter is made up of tiny particles. Particles of matter are moving all the time. These particles have spaces between them. That is why they can move freely, because there is spaces. The particles of matter always attract each other. Okay. So, class, that would be the end of our lesson about the nature of matter. So if you have some questions or clarification, you can also ask me. Or for better understanding, if you want another resources, then you can try to log in our GAITF site. So you can go to our e-learning path, then there are some resources in which you can find there, which is related to our discussion. So do not worry, just find time for that. So thank you and God bless. So hope to see you next meeting, and stay safe, everyone.